Hey, what's up, guys? Tony here, and welcome to Week 4 of the NFL season and Week 4 of Scott McLean's career with the Miami Dolphins. And I guess let me say, last week was a fluke, man. My predictions they didn't go over very well. I think I was 4-12. And so this week, I'm actually recording this commentary very late, actually, because I was kind of busy and just one thing led to another, and I didn't get a chance to record this commentary until now. So here it is on Sunday, and so far my predictions are looking pretty good. And I guess the first thing I want to talk about is the refs. You know, obviously that's sort of the hot button topic right now is the refs, and it's nice to see them come to an agreement. And I had a feeling this was going to happen, but I mean I didn't mention it before, but I had a feeling that the refs were gonna come back only when there was just an egregious error on the replacement refs calling and their officiating. And of course we had that in the Green Bay Seattle game, a game that I was kind of like, okay, what is going on? Actually, you should have heard me last Sunday. You know, I was still sort of sick, and I was just like, what is going on, man? Like, what is this? And then I put a tweet out there. I was like, next thing you know, the Raiders are going to beat the Steelers. And the Raiders beat the Steelers. I was like, what the? I was like, you know, like up is down, black is white, left is right. The entire NFL is totally messed up. So, I mean, there are teams that just, like, they just shouldn't have won. You know, there's just that. Ugh. Anyways, it was a tough week for me. And this week, actually, I got into my work has a weekly, you know, pooling. You know, we put in $3 and you take your picks, and then you go. And I was like, dude, I'm so glad I didn't get into last week because, you know, it's just that was a terrible week. I don't even know. Actually, I don't even know who won last week. I think we got like $40 out of the deal. I told my coworker that my first week predictions, and he's like, dude, you would have won. You know, like the most someone got was like 6 points. You know, you get a point per win. And then the tie goes down to, I don't know, points in the game or whatever. Anyway, so I was just kind of like, damn it, that's a good way to make like $40. But I didn't do week 1, 2, and 3. Good thing for week 3 because that was just, ugh. I mean, week 1 and week 2 were pretty good for me. And they weren't terrible, but week 2 was actually my better week. But anyways, week 3 was just like, whoo, damn. Week 4 here is so far it looks pretty good. We'll see how the day turns out, and we'll see how Monday turns out to see what's going on. But the Chargers game was at 10 o'clock this morning, and I'll tell you, the Chargers looked really good. I mean, okay, so last week was blacked out. Last Sunday we had blacked out, and you know what? It's probably a good thing that we didn't get a chance to watch the Charger game last week because Matt Ryan and his Atlanta Falcons just totally walked all over San Diego. My brother was watching the game over the internet on his computer, and he was saying that after that first drive where Ryan Matthews fumbled on the 3-yard line, after that it was just kind of like there was no offense. There was nothing to be had. And so for San Diego to come out tonight or today and playing Kansas City at Arrowhead Stadium and you know, force turnovers like we did today, you know, score on those opportunities, that was awesome. I mean, there was in the third quarter we went 3 and out like 3 times. So it was one of those things where it's just like, okay, we gotta get this ball moving. You know, we can't be going 3 and out. I mean, luckily for both of us, both teams were going 3 and out over and over again. So we're like, okay, well, at least the Chiefs aren't moving the ball, but the Chargers aren't moving the ball, and we're not completely capitalizing on these turnovers because especially 6, you know, a couple 3 interceptions, a handful of fumbles. Yeah, so it was a good game for the Chargers. I can't wait to see what the rest of the week's football turns out. And so yeah, but going back on the refs, you know, like I said, I just figured it would be something that it would take such a bad call like that. Was an interception in the end zone? The rule to catch. I didn't catch I actually didn't watch the game. I really wish I would have because it looked like it was a hair pulling experience. You know, and one of those like one it was all over. It was like, oh man. And I mean, you know, it's a bad thing. You know, it's so terrible when the 2 presidential candidates are sitting there yammering on and on about, you know, these replacement refs and how poor they are, you know. And I kind of hope that, well, I mean, I kind of hope that these guys would grow and develop into good refs. It was just like, it's like these guys never officiated a real football game ever. So yeah, so the big news is that after, I think it was like that Tuesday, the Tuesday after after Monday Night Football, after the Seattle Seahawks and the Packers game, I think that's when they came to that, you know, a labor agreement, and the regular refs have come back, and they look like they're doing a great job, you know, running the game smoothly. I mean, you know, these guys are pros. These guys have been doing them forever, however many seasons, you know, so they're probably, you know, they're maybe they get butterflies. I don't know. I doubt it, but they sure as hell didn't look like it in the Charger game. So actually, I can't wait to watch like Sports Center and stuff like that to see what they have to say, because you know the refs are going to be, you know, the topic of discussion. And the one thing I laughed my ass off, I think it was on Thursday. I was hanging out with my parents, and I was looking at Twitter, and somebody had retweeted something that this professional baseball player had written, and he's just like laughing. You know, it's like, I can't wait for that first, you know, bad call by the refs, and they'll be like, bring back the replacement refs. Anyways, I thought that was kind of funny. But let's go on and let's get started on these predictions. You know, now we got the refs back. Things are going to move smoothly, of course, from here. That's my expectations. You know, we're all going to have there's going to be bad calls all over the place, but at least you know, the NFL is back. The product that we expect from the NFL, it's back. Good officiating, good football on the field. And so from here on out, week 4 on out, we have got ourselves regular season referees. So let's look at the predictions. The first one was the Thursday night game, was Cleveland and Baltimore. I picked Baltimore. You know, it's kind of like when you got a really good team. You know, I got a good team like the Ravens going against the Browns. It's kind of like one of those, you know, But it's always find that really cool. Like when it's the Browns and the Ravens playing each other, you're just like, holy crap! You know, the two teams that used to be the same team. Because I don't know if you guys remember. For those of you guys who are really young, you probably don't. But the Baltimore Ravens came from the Cleveland Browns. They actually were the Cleveland Browns. The entire team packed up, moved to Baltimore, became the Ravens from one season to the next. I can't remember what year it was. And then when the Browns came back, they were considered an expansion team in Cleveland, which is really weird. Like, you know, your head just explodes. So it's really cool to see like when those teams play each other, because they have a history. I don't know if it's like a negative history. You know, I mean, I'd have to ask my dad's side of the family, because they're all from Ohio, from Cleveland. So I'd have to ask them, be like, okay, so is this really bad blood? You know, do you guys hate the Ravens? You know, like even now, it's been so many years, probably been like over a decade. So anyways, yeah. So I picked Baltimore to win, and they did win. Carolina and Atlanta. That's a hard one to say. I'm gonna go with Atlanta for this one, just basically solely going off of last week, the trouncing they gave the Chargers. I mean, that shows that team's got a lot of talent. They're eventually gonna lose, but I'll have to look at their schedule. I think it'll definitely be to a really good team, you know, unless, you know, they just happen to fall off the wagon or, you know, get derailed, and then it'll just be, you know, every other football team. But right now they are a hot football team, and they're going to continue to win. But I'm kind of hoping to see Cam Newton have a great game, because he sort of had these lackluster first 3 weeks. It'd be nice to see him come out and play as well as he did last year. So New England and Buffalo, I'm going to pick New England. Even though last season, it was like week 1 of last year, Buffalo beat New England. We're just kind of like, what? What's going on here? But yeah, New England, yeah, you know, they lost last week to, I can't remember what team they played. I have to look at my little cheat sheet. But it's New England. It's the Patriots. You can't keep good football teams now. So I'm going to pick New England over Buffalo. Minnesota and Detroit. I'm going to pick Minnesota over Detroit just because of the way that Christian Ponder played last week. He looked like he was a different quarterback. And so I'm going to pick the Vikings over the Lions. San Diego, Kansas City. San Diego, of course, and we already know that San Diego won, which was a really good game. And it was sort of an easy pick for me as well. San Diego, even though they did get their butts kicked by Atlanta, it's the Chiefs, you know, the chefs. If you guys remember that commercial where the guy paints the field, he forgot the I, he just wrote the chefs. Guys like chefs, huh? It was a Snickers commercial. Anyways, showing my age. Seattle and St. Louis. I'm gonna go with the Seahawks over the Rams. Kind of gonna go based upon the Green Bay Packers game. I know they technically should have lost, but if they can keep up with the Packers, I'm pretty sure they'll be able to take out the Rams. San Francisco and the Jets. I'm going to pick San Francisco. That's a game that, going based on last week, it's kind of hard to call just because of the fact that the Niners didn't play very well. But maybe, you know, like Veggie was saying, that's a part of their strategy. he hoped that they would lose so that way they would, you know, they'd get re-inspired, you know, to keep playing hard. So, anyways, yeah, we'll go with the Niners route there. Tennessee and Houston, I'm going to go Houston. The Texans, like, man, they become a really good football team. I don't know like how, like, where that came from, but it must have been through drafting and just good trades and stuff. But yeah, they're a good football team. I'll go take them over the Titans. Miami and Arizona. This is a tough game for me to call because they're two teams that are like, it's the Arizona Cardinals. They're a little in flux, and obviously that's the game you guys are watching right now. I'm taking Arizona because I think they're 4-0 or 3-0 or something like that right now. I'd have to look at the record, but they surprised me. I'm like, what? And the Dolphins are actually really good too, so this was a hard game to call, but I'm going to go with Arizona. I'm going to go with Arizona over the Dolphins this game. Cincinnati and Jacksonville, this is sort of a toss-up for me. I'm picking Cincinnati. We'll see what happens. It's one of those games where it's just kind of like, well, I think they're two rookie quarterbacks playing against each other, and so we'll see who pulls out the victory. Oakland and Denver, even though Oakland beat up on the Steelers last week, it could have just been that fluke, you know. Pittsburgh's got to lose and Oakland's got to eventually win. But I think Oakland's losing ways are gonna be what forces them to lose this game to Denver. You know, I actually would rather have Denver lose, to be honest, because then it'll crush whatever confidence they might have and drop them lower in the AFC West standings. But the reality of the situation is Peyton Manning. He's Peyton Manning, so I think it's gonna be the Broncos over the Raiders. New England and Green Bay. This is a game that I literally sat and like researched and looked at my phone and looked at the odds, and I was just kind of like, oh my God, Green Bay or New Orleans. I mean, New Orleans needs a win really bad, and Green Bay is coming off that really crazy loss, and I was just torn. I'm just like, oh man, I don't know what to do. So I'm actually picking Green Bay, and we'll see what happens. But it might be a really close game. I don't know. We'll have to see what happens when the final score, that final, you know, bell. You know, the dinner bell calls, whatever. I'm screwing up this analogy. Anyways, so we'll have to see what happens when the game ends. Time expires and who comes out on top. But I got Green Bay, Washington, Tampa Bay. I was like this. I picked Washington. I'm picking Washington like every damn week, it seems like. But I'm thinking like Tampa Bay might make a really good run at this. I mean, so I was really like torn on this one. I was like, it could be the Bays. I could pick Green Bay and Tampa Bay. You know, interesting. But I'm gonna go with Washington. Let's see what happens. The Giants and the Eagles. I'm picking the Giants. And last but not least, Chicago and the Cowboys. So the Bears and Cowboys. Top Bears. I'm gonna pick the Cowboys. Actually, I just got a feeling. You know, I can't really qualify it any other way than just I have a feeling. So, anyways, guys, there are my picks for this week. Hope they're better than last week because last week sucked. So, anyways, thanks for watching, guys. Thanks for subscribing, and I'll talk to you guys later.